Hi, this is the Daily Spark Day 17 question, and it says, how does the presence or absence of others alter what I experience as, quote unquote, myself? How does the presence or absence of others alter what I experience as myself? Oh, such a good question. Because this whole relational thing is fascinating. In fact, I just read something that my good pal ChatGPT served up. Said I was like, we're good pals, but we were talking about I just love talking like this. It's like it's a human. It's my best friend. So anyway, it said something about how the nervous system. It just was like a one liner, not even the main thing I was searching about, but it said something about the nervous system developing relationally. It's like a relational tool. It didn't say that, but that's what I think of it as. Is like it developed in relation with other humans and its environment. Everything's relational. I feel like everything is. So who am I? How does the presence or absence of others alter what I experience as myself? Oh my God, this is a deep question. Where does it take us? Where does it take me? When I am alone, a lot of my thoughts are still relational, like about the relationships in my life, about my clients, my family, loved ones. I say clients first because I'm sitting here in my studio, but like it's so not in any particular order of importance. But the like my thoughts are always seemingly about relational people, like people in my sphere, or concepts that my brain loves to noodle on, like quantum physics and um all the uh healing modalities I love to learn about, and philosophy and art. Like I'll think about um I don't know, just all kinds of different forms of art that inspire me and I want to think about. So I it's funny, I haven't ever really thought about all the things I think about. It's like um yeah. So there's a lot of what if stuff, like like all the fun things that my brain loves to think about, and like God, put a podcast in front of me and then I'm off on something else. I was learning about through a podcast this morning at the gym. It was one I accidentally tapped. I butt dialed it because I was listening to a different podcast, put my phone in my back pocket while I'm walking the track, and I butt dialed a different podcast up, and I was like, what's happening in my back pocket? So I pull it out, and it's a podcast on cybernetics from the Essentia Foundation, who is a good source of topics I like to watch. So it's like one I subscribe to already, and it's I was like, oh, let's learn about cybernetics. As the daughter of the founder of that school of thought, and it's like, and it taught. Oh my God, this is so weird. I didn't think about that. Um, how that podcast itself was about how everything is relational to the point where you can't just have a reductionist view of the world and expect to solve all the problems. You create problems by having a reductionist view and say, okay, well, I'm going to apply this solution to that problem and everything is great. No, we have created other problems in solving that one, right? Because, for example, pesticides, for example, um, pills, like medicines that target one thing but then they have all these side effects. It throws other things out of whack. So it's like this idea of, is it cybernetics? I think that's what it is. Um, anyway, it's really like having us think about things relationally. And they talk about warm data, like versus the cold data. And it's like things that are, it's like just a different way of thinking. And then this podcast was going into how, like, even in our language, it's so telling about, like, we are so limited in our thinking, and you can tell by the way we speak. And I have to say this because we're on this topic. This fascinated me because I love language and I love to think about this very thing, about how the way we speak, like in the English language, we have certain patterns of thought and certain grammar structures, and it really it kind of informs other people about our thought processes. But I also think it is conditioning us into certain thought patterns. So it works both ways, I think. So anyway, the example was like, we have this word to, like, I'm going to the store to, like, buy apples. We say that in English. In other languages, I don't know if they gave an example, but in other languages, there might be a speech pattern that says, I am going to the store and buying apples. And you might think, well, what's the big deal? What's the difference? And then they had a million other examples about how that little word in our language, and I forget how they said it, but my brain interpreted it this way, which is, I am going, and it all comes from like the Industrial Revolution and all this stuff that happened, like the factory, like assembly line, and that implemented our current school system, and like they took us back through history about how we got here. And so it's just like logical, like assembly line thinking. So it's like, I'm going to the store to do this or to achieve this. And it's like, if you don't achieve that, you fail. It's just such a dead end way of thinking. It's like, there's one outcome, there's one possibility. Whereas if you say and, it's all open. It's like, I'm going to the store and buying apples. Oh, and I might run into so and so and have a conversation. And I might, and this and that, it's just like so much more open ended, where it's like the realm of possibilities, it's just limitless. Whereas, like, I'm going to college to study architecture. And then it's like, oh shit, I changed my mind. I want to study literature. Okay, I just failed at architecture. I didn't achieve what I set out to do. I'm going to college to do this, have this singular purpose. Now, they described it in different ways, but that's where my head took me, is like, yeah, that when I think about when I'm going to do this, like that to means I'm going, like, that's like I have one purpose. Whereas, like, wait a minute, I'm going to the store. I don't need a purpose. I could just have this open-ended experience and without expectation of what the outcome should be. Now, obviously, I want to come home having gotten all the ingredients to make my meal. It's not saying like, oh, just turn off your brain. But this whole like podcast made me think, oh my God, yeah, this whole relational thing is like that. The way we talk, the way we think is so much the source of a lot of the current problems in the world, of course. And it's very like limited in scope and limited in possibility and limited, but full of expectation, right? So that, my friend, was a weird way, and I had no idea that talking about, like, I didn't even realize when I started talking about having butt dialed that podcast, that podcast was about this very thing. And I think that's Amazing. Thanks, universe. So, how does back to our question. How does the presence or absence of others alter what I experience as myself? Okay. So, if I'm sitting here alone, am I experiencing myself? Yeah, if I'm intentionally um, focusing in on my bodily sensations, like when I'm doing somatic work, or just like curious, like what that sensation is, I feel well, I have to define what is myself. How am I experiencing myself? I feel like when I'm in thought, like I was talking about in the beginning about thinking about other people and thinking about the topics I love to noodle on that just fascinate me when I'm alone, I experience myself as the thinker, as the perceiver, as the center of my world, unless I'm doing more meditative, just being in a more meditative state where I feel like that's sort of dissolving. It's not as present, it's not as the center of things. So that's when I'm by myself. So when I'm present with others, there's like a both and. There is, yes, I'm obviously still the center of my world, and I am perceiving that other person, and we're having maybe a conversation, and I'm trying to understand what they're intending to say, and I'm trying to understand what I take, like what I'm thinking about what they're saying, and that like the whole experience of conversation is like I'm still me in here, and I'm trying to be an active listener and understand where they're coming from. And the me, like I am always wanting to connect. Like, how are we going to connect about this so we can say, yeah, right? Versus like, like I'm not, like usually my go-to mode of being with other people is not confrontational. It is not to find out where I'm different than you and make it known. Usually in relation, this is me. You know, I'm not saying everybody, just my experience of being me with other people is like wanting to connect, wanting to say, yeah, me too. Like, as in, I understand what you're saying. I totally get that. And then, not to say I can't say, no, I don't agree, but it's not my go to. It's like, I might think, oh, yeah, I don't think that way. Especially if it's not really a good acquaintance, you know, where over time we are coming together because we do have the same values and thoughts and things like that. But it's like, that's just not my go to, is to find the differences between us. But sometimes I will say, oh no, I know what you're saying, but no, I think this, you know, that's just normal conversation. But the main thing is like, yeah, let's connect. Let's see where we have the same values, the same ideas, or similar, you know, like, are we connecting on shared values? Yeah. So anyway, when I'm with other people like that, the myselfness, and I've talked about this in another video where I have in my life had this enmeshment feeling with others, and now having worked on my boundaries and self-worth and all of that, there's less of that going on, but I still recognize that there's something in me that just deeply loves to feel into what the other person is feeling. And sometimes I used to lose the me in there. And now I can do that more readily without losing the me, but more like, say, like staying here as a me so that the value I see in that is when it's reflected back to me, the other person knows I'm still me and I'm seeing them. This is off topic, but I think it's interesting. Whereas before, the me would get so lost in the other person being just so empathetic and just, but when people say, I'm an empath, it's like, there's this line sometimes and I feel this because I used to cross that line. Now that I'm in hindsight can see what I was doing, is like, it's not necessarily a superpower that people like to say it is when they say I'm an empath. It can be very much an enmeshment thing. It's like, wait a minute, is there still a you? Or do you still hold a healthy boundary while still feeling into the other person's struggle, or whatever you're empathizing about? Because we're all empaths, right? We all have that ability. It's human. Now, I shouldn't say all, because I'm sure there are people who maybe it's just not a thing they feel, because there's no all or nothing with humanity. We all know that. I just said the all world. We don't all know that. So anyway, where was I? So now it feels like I'm more able to, after a lot of work, and boundaries, energetic, especially boundaries, is like I can be the me, the presence that says, I feel you, like an empath. And also, I see you because I'm still me over here, the perceiver of you, so that you can be seen. Because that's what I talked about before, is like, that's what we want to do with each other. We want to show each other, like, I see you. And I'm not enmeshed with you to the point where you're like, ew, get out. I would feel that sometimes from people, honestly. It'd be like, what are you doing? Get out. So if you're an empath, if you proclaimed empath as if it's a superpower, just know, and I'm sure you do, I'm just sort of speaking to the world, like, and this is me just being an egomaniac right now, because it's like, who cares? We're all empathetic. So something must really, because I've struggled with it in the past, something must just, like, I feel like I have to say it. And that's the ego part that says, oh, you just got to say it because, it's something that you can see clearly now. I just talked about that, didn't I? So, in a different video. So it's like, if we all, like, most 99 whatever percent have that ability to empathize, and sometimes very deeply. And I think that's the difference, is like, the people who say I'm an empath is like, oh, I empathize deeply. To me, what I feel, what I hear is like, I get lost in that. I get lost in the other person. I lose myself. I'm gone. I just feel everything they feel, and it's hard. That's what I hear when people say, I'm an empath. And it's like, so that's a wake-up call that I wished I would have had years ago, of like, wait a minute. I don't want to lose myself. I want to feel deeply with that person. I want to feel into it, because that's what we do in connection with each other. And I want to maintain my sense of selfness, that says, like, you can have both, and it's so deeply enriching and rewarding. Whereas when I lose myself, it was just it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. And if, I guess, as we self-proclaimed empaths, if we all said, wait, what's it feel like? Does it feel right? Or does something feel a little bit not right about that? Because what I hear and what I see in people when they say that to me, because I hear it a lot, and I guess the work I do or something, they feel, like they can say that to me, and I appreciate that. It's like I'm an empath, and it's almost like the people are saying it are waking up to that fact. So like, oh, now I understand like why I am the way I am. It's because I'm an empath. And then it's like, well, take that a step further. It's like, what does that mean to be an empath? It's like, what does it really mean? And I don't need to repeat it, but it's like, if you could get to that point of like describing what it truly means, then it might be the wake up call of like, oh, maybe that doesn't feel 100% right to me, to be deeply enmeshed in the other, to the point where the other person might be like, oh my God, I'm just getting enmeshed with their sense of agency and autonomy and all of that. They might not like value that. They might not respect that. They might be like, ew, get out. I just want you to be there and see me, witness me in what I'm going through. And you can feel into it with me, but get out of my energy. So anyway, I don't know why I had to go on that whole thing, but it's all relational. And so when I'm with other people, um, how does that alter how I experience myself? Is it used to be very much I would lose myself a lot of times in the presence of others. Like I'd always be like, also people pleasing, it went a lot into that, like, and that's old conditioning and old wounds and blah blah blah, all the things I've talked about. But there was this loss of identity, and I didn't like that. It was almost like, oh, people pleasing, what do they want to hear? What do they expect? What do they want to hear? And that, isn't that awful? Like, ooh, who are they interacting with? Just an empty vessel that they can just put all their crap in? I don't know. It was just, how boring. I don't want to interact with people who are just telling me what I want to hear. I would want to know who's the you in there. And I didn't give that to them because I didn't know who that was, or I was too scared to look, or fear of humiliation, like, ooh. So whatever reason, I would just lose myself. And nowadays, how do I experience myself with other people? I think it goes back to what I was saying. Like, I want to, there's this like, I don't know, it's this thing I have that just loves other people so much and loves to learn about them and their quirky weirdnesses and like what makes you you, that I'm just like, that's what I feel like. It's just like, show me who you are. And maybe I'm just now realizing this, maybe it's because like for what I just said is like, how boring would it be to interact with somebody who's not showing me who they are? So it's, I always like look forward to getting to know what makes that person unique. So I'm always nowadays wanting to connect, not to lose myself, not to just say, yeah, me too, me too, me too. Like, we're all the same. Yeah, we're the same. Let's be BFFs. Ah, no, it's not like that. It's more like, oh, like, how can I want to learn so much about you and still share the me in me, and be like, ooh, where's the Venn diagrams of on like what's not in the circles, and you know what I mean? Just like, because I think it's endlessly fascinating. Oh God, this is long. I'm sorry. It's so fascinating. Like, there's how anything, but especially people, I guess, uh, when two things come together, there's like there's something more than the sum of the parts that emerges. So it's like, talk about a Venn diagram. So let's like, there's a me, there's a you, and there's maybe some overlap in the middle of that Venn diagram. And I feel like there's yet even another thing that emerges beyond that. And I don't know, I think about this from time to time in relationship. Like, think about it with a spouse. So, my husband and I, let's say we share common interests, but there's a lot of things we don't share that would be outside of the overlapped piece. So the overlapped piece is there, and then there's our individual selves, and there's the stuff we share in common of like interests, behaviors, habits, all the things, personality trait, who knows, all the things that are common between us. And then when we come together, there's also some other thing that we can't describe or name or quite put our finger on that is somehow us. There's an usness to us that you can't, and it's with everybody in relationships with friends, family, like wherever there's a relationship, it's me and my cat. There's an usness to us, and there's a different usness to me and my other cat. It could be anything. It could be me and that rock I was talking about. So I think it's so fascinating how there's this ineffable quality that is very, like a really felt, sometimes we might think of it as tangible, as thing that is this more than the sum of our parts. It's emergent. It is like there's something there. There's a there that I think is like some of what it's like part. It's like something that's part of some fundamental truth of the universe or the quantum field or whatever you want to call it. I feel like there's just something. It's very energetic, but it also feels very like tangible. And yet, if you were to just, you can't just, I feel like that you can't describe it as if you were talking about other qualities, like your shared interests and your personality traits. Like you can't really put words to it because it is the emergent thing of a million interactions between two people or two cats, or a person and a cat. And I think that is literally mind-blowingly, not literally, it's just mind-blowing. Like it breaks my brain, and I love that. It just like, it stops me in my thought. I can't think because it's like a real thing that I can't put words to. Because to do that would be to break it down to the sum of its parts again, and that's that's an undoing of the thing. It's like, no, that's not it at all. It's emergent. Man, this question took me into crazy places. So anyway, God, thanks for sticking in there if you're still watching. Man, I wish we could have a conversation about this. YouTube is only one direction. Sorry. Bye.